I never thought my father's retirement gala would be the night I died inside, twice. He stood there under the crystal chandeliers of the Grand Hyatt, microphone in hand, toasting his 40 years at the helm of Harlan Enterprises, and with a smile that could charm a jury, he called me our biggest disappointment. The room, packed with board members, sycophants, and distant cousins who'd flown in from Dallas, erupted in awkward laughter. But I felt it like a gut punch, the kind that leaves you gasping on the marble floor. Then, before the echoes faded, HR's voice cut through the haze like a siren. Actually, Mr. Harlan, that's not entirely accurate. Esther's the one who saved this company from your mess. The betrayal hit harder than the public shaming because it wasn't just words, it was the unraveling of everything I'd buried for him. For years, I'd been the dutiful daughter, the fixer in the family empire built on steel and secrets in the Rust Belt heart of Pittsburgh. Harlan Enterprises wasn't just a conglomerate of mills and logistics, it was Dad's legacy. A beast he tamed with ruthless deals and whispered threats. And me, I'd been its silent guardian, taking the fall for his sins so the name wouldn't tarnish. That night, as the crowd's murmurs swelled into a storm, I realized the hook I'd swallowed whole was barbed. Revenge wasn't a choice anymore. It was the only air left to breathe. But let's rewind, because the real poison started brewing long before the champagne soured. It was 2018, the year the tariffs gutted our supply chain like a chainsaw through butter. Dad, William Harlan, the silver fox with a handshake like a vice, had always played fast and loose with the books. Creative accounting, he'd call it, winking over Scotch neat in his corner office overlooking the Monongahela River. I was 32 then, fresh off my MBA from Wharton, the golden child who'd clawed her way up from intern to VP of operations. Mom had died young, cancer eating her from the inside while Dad built his throne. So it was just us against the world, or so I told myself. The first crack appeared during a routine audit. Our CFO, a weaselly guy named Reggie, who'd golfed his way into the job, flagged irregularities, offshore accounts siphoning funds to shell companies in the Caymans. Not pennies, millions, funneled to cover bad bets on Chinese steel futures. Dad's visionary risks, he'd later spin it. But the feds were sniffing around, whispers of RICO violations floating like smog over the mills. If it blew up, we'd lose everything. The factories employing half of Allegheny County, the pensions for 1,000 families who'd bet their lives on Harlan's stability. He came to me one rain-lashed evening, the kind where the Allegheny swells and drowns the city lights. I was in my loft apartment downtown, nursing a glass of Pinot, when his Bentley pulled up unannounced. "Esther." "Kiddo," he said, shedding his Burberry trench like a skin. "We got a problem." A big one. His eyes, those piercing blue ones that mirrored mine, held no apology, just calculation. He laid it out over takeout from Primanti Brothers. The money trail led straight to him. Bribes to union bosses to quash strikes. Kickbacks from suppliers who'd cut corners on safety regs. One whistleblower, and it was indictments all around. "Why me?" I asked, fork hovering over my sandwich, the coleslaw dripping like tears. "Because you're clean, Esther. The board loves you. And because you're my blood." He leaned in, voice dropping to that paternal timbre that always hooked me. "Take the hit. Say it was a rogue operation you greenlit without my sign-off. We'll spin it as youthful overreach. 6 months, maybe a plea deal, and you're back, hero status. I retire on schedule. The company sails on." I should have seen the flip then. The way his loyalty was a switchblade. but grief and duty blurred the edges. Mom's voice echoed in my head. Protect the family, Essie. No matter what.
So I did.
I confessed to the feds in a sterile conference room. My lawyer, a Harlan retainer, coaching me through the script. Embezzlement charges. 15 months in a minimum security camp upstate. Paroled early for good behavior. The headline screamed, Harlan heiress in fraud scandal, burying Dad's name in the fine print. He visited once.
Through the plexiglass.
Promising, this is temporary.
Pumpkin.
You'll see. Out on parole in 2020. COVID raging like biblical wrath. I slunk back to Pittsburgh a ghost. The company had restructured in my absence, layoffs disguised as efficiencies. Mills shuttered under the guise of green energy pivots. Dad promoted Reggie to my old spot, the weasel grinning at the welcome back luncheon like he'd won the Masters. I took a lateral move to consultant, buried in spreadsheets, rebuilding what I'd torched for him. Whispers followed me. The disgraced daughter. Dates dried up, friends ghosted. But I swallowed it. Told myself it was for the greater good, the jobs saved. The legacy intact. That's when the second betrayal slithered in. I started noticing anomalies again. Payments to a consulting firm in Miami. Invoices for phantom shipments. Reggie was sloppy. But Dad? He was puppeteering from the shadows. Using my parole restrictions to keep me leashed. No board seat. No voting shares, just enough salary to remind me of my place. And then there was Lila. My half-sister I never knew about until a DNA test ad on Facebook cracked the vault. Dad's affair with his secretary in the 90s. A love child shipped off to Seattle with hush money. Lila Harlan.
28.
A barista with a trust fund she'd blown on art school and bad tattoos. She showed up at my door one crisp fall day in 2022. Rain-slicked and fierce. Armed with emails Dad had accidentally CC'd her. He's playing us both. Sis, she said, dripping on my hardwood. I'm the spare heir. The one he dangles for leverage. You took the fall so he could pivot to family values branding post-scandal.
But now?
He's grooming me to replace you entirely, says you're damaged goods. Her words ignited something feral. A spark in the dry tinder of my resentment. Lila wasn't innocent. She'd been feeding him intel on my instability, little reports on my therapy sessions, mandated by parole. But she flipped then. Rage mirroring mine. We became unlikely allies. 2 daughters bartered in his game. She had access to his personal server, hacked via a phishing scam she'd run on Reggie, and together, we pieced the mosaic, not just fraud, but cover-ups. A mill collapse in 2015. 3 workers crushed under faulty beams. Dad buried the report, paid off families, and pinned it on union sabotage. I'd signed the NDA blind, thinking it was routine liability. The planning started in whispers over burner apps. Late nights in dive bars off East Carson Street where the Pyrgis were cheap and the walls had ears. Revenge wasn't a tantrum, it was architecture. I'd expose him, not with a bang, but a slow bleed. Plant seeds in board meetings, questions about liquidity. Veiled nods to auditors. Lila would leak docs to journalists. Anonymous drops to the Post-Gazette. But the real hook? His retirement. The gala was the stage. HR my unwitting prop. I confided in Carla, head of human resources, over girl talk lunches at the melting pot. Not the full truth, just enough. Dad's grooming Lila. Sidelining me unfairly. He's forcing me out, I told her. Tears strategic. Carla? A no-nonsense divorcee from Philly with a nose for bullshit. Promise discretion. But I knew she'd crack under the spotlight. HR types always do, when the emperor's naked. As the gala loomed, black tie, string quartet, caterers from Dianoias, tension coiled like the Ohio River in flood season. Dad rehearsed his speech in the boardroom, ad-libbing jabs at my missteps for laughs. Esther's got the heart, but not the steel, he chuckled to Reggie. Lila and I met in a Starbucks parking lot, exchanging USBs like spies in a look-hair novel. You sure about this? She asked, eyes darting to my Prius. No, I admitted. But regret's a luxury we can't afford. The night arrived. December 2023. Pittsburgh glittering under a rare snow-dusted sky. I wore a sheath dress the color of gunmetal, diamonds from Mom's estate winking like accusations. The ballroom hummed with power, senators nursing whiskeys, CEOs in bespoke Tom Fords. Dad took the podium at 9 p.m. sharp, voice booming through the speakers. 40 years, he began, building Harlan from a single forge to an American titan. I've had triumphs, setbacks, and yes, family. To my son-in-law, Mark, for keeping the home fires burning. To Lila, my surprise blessing from Seattle, who's brought fresh eyes to our future. Murmurs of approval. She'd been paraded as the new blood for months. Then his gaze locked on me. Third row. Center. And to Esther. Our biggest disappointment. Laughter rippled. Polite at first, then cruel. My cheeks burned, but I held still, nails digging crescents into my palms. He launched into the anecdote, my reckless deals that nearly sank us, a sanitized version of the fraud I'd confessed to. The room ate it up, toasts raised to his magnanimity. Then Carla stood, glass in hand, face pale as the linens. Mr. Harlan, she said into the mic she'd commandeered from the MC. Voice steady despite the tremor. With all due respect, that's not the full story. Esther didn't fail. She covered for executive misconduct that would have buried this company. And, if you'd like, I have the emails to prove it. The room froze. Dad's face drained of color, mouth opening like a landed trout. Carla.
Sit down.
This is inappropriate. But she didn't. She pulled out her phone, projecting the first leak, an email chain from 2017. Dad to Reggie. Bury the mill report. Esther signs the NDA. Tell her it's for the workers. Gasps echoed. Phones whipped out. Recording. Lila, from the wings, slipped forward with a tablet, cueing the full dossier offshores.
Bribes.
The works. Dad, she said, voice breaking for effect. You made us your shields. Chaos erupted, board members shouting. Security hovering. Dad lunging for the projector cord like a man possessed. I rose then, weaving through the melee to the podium, my heels clicking like gunshots. You built an empire on lies. Dad, I said, not yelling, whispering into the mic. Amplified for all. I took the blame so you could play saint. But saints don't pimp their daughters for stock prices. He whirled on me, spittle flecking his lips. You ungrateful bitch. This was for us. For the legacy. Legacy. I laughed, bitter as black coffee. You mean your ego. The workers crushed under your greed. The families you bought off with blood money. I carried that weight so you could golf in Scottsdale. The polarizing moment hit when Reggie bolted for the exit, tackled by a tipsy VP who'd always hated him. Fists flew, not mine, but the board's fury turning on Dad's inner circle. Lila grabbed my arm, whispering, "Now, the server wipe." But as I nodded, doubt flickered. Was this justice? Or just trading one monster for another? I'd orchestrated it. After all, fed Carla the docs. Coached Lila's tears. Was I the fixer or the fraud? Sirens wailed outside by 10:30 p.m., feds swarming the Hyatt like ants on spilled sugar. Dad was cuffed in the lobby. Tuxedo askew. Bellowing about family betrayal. The headlines would scream, "Harlan dynasty crumbles. Daughter's revenge or reckoning?" Polarizing. Yes. Pundits on Fox decrying my ambush as disloyalty. CNN hailing it as Me Too for corporate sins. Lila and I slipped out a service door. Snowflakes melting on our lashes. The city's bridges glowing like veins of fire.
But the twist?
As we drove to my place, her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown. "Well played, Esther. But check the attachment. Your real inheritance." It was a video, grainy from 2015, the mill collapse. Not faulty beams, but sabotage. Union footage I'd never seen, showing Reggie planting charges to force a payout. And Dad, in the corner, nodding approval. But the knife, me, in the shadows, handing Reggie the detonator. "For the greater good," my younger voice said. I'd known. I'd greenlit it to break the strike. Save costs. Dad hadn't forced me. I'd volunteered, hungry for his nod. Lila glanced over, eyes wide. "You?" I buried it deeper than he ever did. The car swerved on black ice, my hands trembling on the wheel. Revenge tasted like ash. I'd avenged a ghost of myself. The company? It survived. Restructured under a new board. Me as interim CEO, hero or villain,
Depending on the spin.
Lila vanished to Seattle. Trust shattered.
Dad?
20 years in Club Fed. Writing letters I never read. Was it triumph? In the quiet of my loft, staring at the river's black ribbon. I wonder. The legacy endures. But mine stained, a daughter's dark mirror to her father's sins. And in America's boardrooms, where ambition devours its young, maybe that's the real hook. No one's clean. And forgiveness is the biggest lie of all.
No.
That's not the end. Hell. It was barely intermission. The fallout from the gala stretched like taffy. Sticky and unrelenting. Pulling everyone into its maw. By dawn, my phone was a war zone. Voicemails from reporters. Esther. Was this premeditated? Bordelize. We need damage control. Meet at 8 a.m. And one from Dad's lawyer. Voice like gravel. You've destroyed him. Expect the countersuit. Lila crashed on my couch. Scrolling Twitter, X. Whatever the hell they call it now, where Harlan betrayal trended. Memes of Dad as King Lear in cuffs going viral. I poured us coffee. Black as the Mon. And we plotted the next move over Eggo waffles that tasted like cardboard. The feds will want statements, I said, scrolling the Post-Gazette app. Front page. Heiress exposes father's empire of lies. Subhead. Orchestrated takedown or personal vendetta? The polarizing split was instant, blue-check liberals Leoneizing me as a whistleblower avenger, while the Heartland feeds decried it as woke family warfare ruining American jobs. Lila smirked, her tattooed knuckles wrapping the mug. Check the replies. Half want to date you. Half want to dox you. She wasn't wrong. My mentions overflowed with marriage proposals laced with conspiracy theories. Esther's a deep state plant. And death threats from loyal Harlan employees who'd lost overtime when the mill shuttered. But the real tension brewed in the boardroom that morning. I arrived at headquarters, A brutalist fortress of glass and concrete off the boulevard of the Allies, flanked by my own lawyer. A sharp hit law grad named Tessa who'd handled my parole like a pro. The conference room smelled of stale Danish and desperation. 12 suits around the oval table. Faces etched with last night's bourbon. Reggie was MIA. Already lawyered up in some Marriott hideout. But the rest? They eyed me like a live grenade. Esther, boomed Harold, the ancient chairman from the old steel days.
This. Spectacle.
Necessary. I took my seat, my old seat, the one with the view of Point State Park, and met his gaze. Necessary? Try inevitable. Dad's been cooking the books since Obama. If I hadn't pulled the pin, the DOJ would have. And we'd all be in orange jumpsuits by Easter. Murmurs rippled. Carla, demoted to observer status, nodded furiously from the corner. She'd resigned pre-dawn, emailing her mea culpa to the board. I acted in good faith. But the truth demanded air. Good faith, huh? I'd groomed her for months, dropping breadcrumbs over fondue about Dad's unethical grooming of Lila. Controversial? Sure. But in the Time's Up era, it stuck. The vote came swift. Emergency powers to me as acting CEO. Pending investigation. Shares dipped 15% at open. CNBC blaring. Harlan Ayers' hostile handover. But by noon, we'd issued a presser, me at the podium. Voice steady. Harlan Enterprises recommits to transparency. Audits commence today. Jobs protected. Pensions intact. The market rebounded. Investors love a redemption arc. That afternoon, the Fed summoned me to the federal courthouse downtown, a squat 60s relic guarded by magnetometers and regret. Special Agent Ruiz, a noble shit Latina from Southside with a pirate's lanyard, grilled me in a room that screamed interrogation chic, flickering fluorescence. Two-way mirror. MS. Harlan, she said, flipping through my file thicker than a King James. You pled guilty to fraud in 2019. Now you're the White Knight? Help me connect the dots. I leaned back, crossing my legs, power pose. Per my Wharton prof. Dots? Try a spiderweb. I took the fall to shield the company. And yes, my father, from his excesses. But the mill collapse? That was premeditated. Reggie rigged it on Dad's orders.
I
facilitated. The admission hung. Controversial as a third rail. Had I just confessed to manslaughter? Ruiz's pen paused. Eyes narrowing. Facilitated how? Logistics. I sourced the materials. Thought it was leverage. Not lethal. Lie by omission. I'd known the risks. The unstable beams they'd blame. For the greater good, right? American dream shorthand for cutting corners. She slid photos across the rubble. Hard hats twisted like pretzels. 3 dead. MS.
Harlan.
Families settled. But justice? That's on us now. No cuffs. Not yet, just a subpoena for the full-server dump Lila had teed up. As I left, snow crunching under my boots, doubt gnawed, was revenge unearthing truth? Or exhuming my own corpse? Lila waited in the car, heater blasting against the chill. What did they say? Enough to bury us both. I stared at the golden triangle. Bridges arcing like nooses. You leaked that video. And I'm the villain too. Her laugh was sharp. Seattle edge cutting through. Villain? We're Harlan's, born to it. Dad flipped us like poker chips. Now we cash out. But flips were his specialty. And mine was brewing. That night, Holed up in a safe house Airbnb in Shadyside, Victorian row house with clawfoot tubs and ghosts, I pored over the docks. Lila crashed early, jet-lagged from her emergency flight, but I couldn't sleep. The twist video played on loop in my mind, my hand, young and eager, passing the tool. For Dad's approval. For the board's nod. For the empire that chewed loyalty and spat bones. By 2 a.m., insomnia led me to his old den unlocked. Because why bother with a disgraced man? Files yellowed in cabinets. Scotch bottles half empty. Tucked behind a false panel, classic Harlan paranoia. A ledger, not digital. Old school. Entries in a scrawl. 1995. E. Birth, gift or curse.
2015. Mail op E. Gelit.
Necessary cull. And Lila. Spare, leverage versus. Esther's volatility. Volatility. The word ignited fury anew. He'd documented my instability. Therapy notes forged. Incidents manufactured. The parole violation he'd quashed? A setup. To keep me compliant. But the gut punch, a letter. Unsealed. To his lawyer. If Esther pushes. Activate Plan B. Her involvement in 15. She pulls the trigger. Not me. He'd planned to flip on me all along. The retirement roast? Preemptive strike. Softening the ground for my takedown. Rage boiled. American style. Not quiet British simmer. But explosive. Fireworks on the fourth fury. I pocketed the ledger. Texted Lila. Meet at dawn. We end this. She arrived bleary-eyed. Uggs over pajamas. What's the play? Confrontation. His arraignment tomorrow. We go public with the ledger. Force his hand. Risky. He flips. You're cooked. Already am. But as we drove to the courthouse at first light, fog cloaking the rivers like a shroud, I felt the tension peak. Arraignment was theater. Dad in ill-fitting county blues. Bail denied. Snarling at the judge about kangaroo court, reporters swarmed the steps. I pushed through. Lila at my flank. Ledger thrust like Excalibur. Dad, I called. Mike's thrusting forward. Your own words. Esther's no disappointment. She's your patsy. He turned, face a mask of feigned shock, but his eyes, cold steel, locked on mine. Esther. Don't. For the family. Family? Lila spat. Waving pages. You mean your alibi? The judge banged gavel. But the damage flowed viral, clips of the showdown racking millions. Pundits split hairs, empower daughters or opportunistic traders? While unions picketed HQ, chanting for Harlan justice.
Polarizing perfection, no héroes.
Just survivors. Yet, as we retreated to a dive diner for eggs over easy, the twist gnawed deeper. Lila's phone buzzed Ruiz. MS. Harlan, we need to talk. About that 15 footage. It's edited. Edited? My blood iced. Back at the Airbnb. We scrubbed the file. Timestamps jumped. My handover spliced from another angle. Original?
Me.
Hesitating. Then walking away. Abort, I'd said on tape. Dad had deep-faked it, crude by 2025 standards. But enough for deniability. You are clean, Lila whispered. Awe and pity mingling. He framed you twice. Relief warred with nausea. I'd avenged a lie. Carried a ghost crime. But the real controversy? In deep-faking me. He'd admitted his rot, admissible. Ruiz confirmed later. Dad's empire crumbled further. Shares tanked 30%. Mills nationalized under probe. Months blurred. Testimonies. Therapy real this time. Lila bonding over bad rom-coms. I stabilized the company. Green retrofits. Worker co-ops. Earning wary respect. But the climax lingered in dreams. That podium moment. His face crumpling not in defeat, but calculation. What flipped next? Spring thawed Pittsburgh's iron grip by April 2024. But my veins ran colder than the Steel City winter. The arraignment showdown had bought headlines. Not closure. Dad's legal team, Shark Tank from Kirkland and Ellis, filed motions to suppress the ledger as fruit of the poisonous tree, claiming I'd stolen it unlawfully. Bullshit. Of course, I had keys. It was my damn house, but in America's justice roulette, truth spins second to technicalities. Ruiz became an unlikely anchor, meeting me weekly at a neutral ground Starbucks near the FBI field office. "Your father's singing," she said over lattes one drizzly Tuesday, her lanyard swinging like a pendulum. "Not to you, to us." Blaming Reggie, the board, even Lila's instability, she air-quoted, eyes twinkling with gallows humor. But the deepfake? That's federal cybercrime. He's looking at consecutive sentences. I stirred my drink, foam swirling like chaos. And me? That footage. Exonerated. She slid a redacted report across. You walked away. He doctored it to keep you leashed. Leashed, the word stung, evoking the invisible chains of daughterly duty. Controversial in therapy speak. Was I victim or volunteer? My shrink, a bespectacled Jew from Squirrel Hill named Dr. Levitt, probed it relentlessly. Esther, you chose silence for love. Is revenge unloving? Love. The American myth, peddled in Hallmark cards and Super Bowl ads.
Idelubadad Shadu.
The titan who taught me poker at 10, promising, life's a bluff. Kid, play to win. But winning meant losing pieces. My 20s in a cell. My name mud. My sister a stranger comrade. Lila and I deepened the alliance. Or so I thought. She moved in temporarily. Her Seattle thrift store vibe clashing with my minimalist loft. Vinyl LPs stacked by the Vitamix. Essential oils diffusing patchily over my La Mer. We sistered up, brunch at Pamela's Diner. Power walks along the Three Rivers. Dissecting dads, sins like autopsy docs. He pitted us, she'd say, biting into a crepe. Classic divide and conquer. But we're the merger now. Yet flips lurked. One night, scrolling X in bed, I caught a thread. Anonymous account at Steel Ghost 47 dropping insider tea on Harlan fraud, accurate. But laced with my dirt. Esther knew about the bribes in 18. Parole was plea bargain. Not fall. My heart hammered. Who? Reggie. Hold up in witness protection? Or closer? Confronting Lila over takeout tie, spicy enough to match my paranoia, I watched her face. You leak that. She blinked. Hurt flickering. Sis.
No.
Why? Your burner. Last week. Pinging that handle. I'd traced it.
Amateur sleuthing via VPN.
Her eyes darted, guilty tick. Same as Dad's. For leverage, she confessed. Voice small. Against the board. They were pushing you out. I amplified your heroism.
Lie.
The posts humanized Dad. Painted me as ambitious ice queen. Flip. She was an ally. She was auditioning for my spot. Using the chaos to sidle into CEO. Betrayal bisected me. Sharper than Dad's roast. Blood or not, I said. shoving the pad tie away. "You're just like him maneuvering pawns." She stormed out, door slamming like judgment. Alone. Tension coiled to snap. Revenge round 2. But against kin? Polarizing self-doubt plagued me. Was I the schemer now? Or savior? The climax brewed at the shareholder meeting. Mace Swelter turning the auditorium into a sweatbox. 500 faces, investors, workers, activists, packed the hall at HQ. Banners waving. Harlan 2.0. Workers first. I'd scripted a masterclass in redemption, slides on ethical audits, profit-sharing pilots, a nod to the Mill Widows Fund. Standing ovation primed. But midway, as I touted transparent governance, the screen glitched, hijacked feed. Up popped the deepfake video. My handover looped with ominous score. Then voiceover. Synthesized but familiar. Dad's timbre. Esther Harlan, architect of collapse. Don't let the wolf in sheep's clothing lead. Gasps. Phones erupted. The board froze. Security scrambled. I gripped the podium. Sweat beading. Whispering to tech. Kill it. But it played on. Splicing evidence. Forged emails. My signature on phantom deals. The crowd split. Some booing. Traitor. Others chanting. Fight the smear. Lila burst from side stage. Feigning shock. But her eyes, gleeful calculation. She'd done it. Colluding with Dad's lawyers for the hack. Flip queen. Indeed. As chaos peaked, fists on chairs, a water bottle sailing, I seized the mic. This is deepfake bullshit. Feds have the originals. I walked away. Heart pounding. I cue my counter. Ruiz's report. Time-stamped exoneration. My father's desperate. But here's the truth. He rigged the mill. Framed me twice. And now uses my sister as his mouthpiece. Lila lunged, screeching. Liar, you're the monster. We grappled, not violent, but raw. Nails and tears, security prying us apart as cameras flashed. The polarizing zenith. Was it sisterly brawl or boardroom coup? X lit up. Harlan drama, blood versus blood. Who you got? Order restored. Vote passed. Me retained. Lila ejected with a restraining order. But the damage? Shares cratered again. Lawsuits piled like snowdrifts. That night, drained, I met Ruiz at a quiet tavern in the Strip District. Pyrrhus untouched. Your pop's team paid Lila, she confirmed. Wired from a Cayman holdout. She's flipping state's evidence for immunity. Immunity. The word soured my ale. And me.
Clean.
But Esther, this life's a house of cards. Pull one. They all tumble. She was right. Dawn found me at the mill site, rebar skeletons fenced off. Wildflowers pushing through cracks. Touching the plaque for the dead, in memory of brave workers, tears came. Hot and unbidden. I'd borne their mistake. Not Dad's alone. My green light. My silence. Lila texted apology. Forgive? Seattle calling. I blocked her. But the twist twisted deeper. Her flip revealed mine. In avenging Dad, I'd become him, calculating. Corner cutting. The company stabilized by summer. Green initiatives blooming. But my soul, fractured mirror. Yet tension eased into resolve.
Dr.
Levitt prescribed radical honesty, therapy groups with laid-off workers.
Amends via scholarships.
Controversial? In cutthroat corporate America, vulnerability was suicide or salvation. Dad's trial loomed fall. A spectacle in federal court. I'd testify. truth serum in my veins. But as leaves turned the hillsides crimson, a letter arrived, his script smudged. Esther, you won the board, but lost the war. Legacies, not shares, it's blood. Lila's coming home. Watch your back. Flip final. She wasn't fleeing, staging a return. The boardroom shadows lengthened anew. October's chill bit early in Pittsburgh, frosting the rivers and my resolve as Dad's trial kicked off in the gray hulk of the federal courthouse. The media circus peaked, satellite trucks clogging Grant Street. Protesters waving "Justice for Mills" signs alongside Free Harlan holdouts, blue-collar diehards who'd mythologized him as job savior. Inside, the courtroom hummed with stenographers' clicks and bailiff barks, air thick with cheap cologne and dread. I took the stand day 3, sworn in on a Bible that felt like lead. The prosecutor, a lanky Bostonian named Hale with a jaw like an anvil, led me through the script, fraud timeline, my 2019 plea, the gala reveal. MS. Harlan, he intoned. Did your father coerce your confession? Yes, I said, voice steady under the lights. He framed it as family duty, protect the legacy. Gasps from the gallery, Dad. At the defense table in a suit too tight for his paunch. Glowered like Ahab spotting the white whale. Cross-exam shredded me. His lawyer, a silver-haired viper named Kensington, wielded the deepfake like a shiv. You facilitated the 2015 incident, correct? Handed over materials knowing the risks. I sourced. Yes, I admitted. Throat dry as sawdust. But I aborted, walked away. The deepfake proves his desperation. The jury, mix of steelworkers and soccer moms, shifted, eyes skeptical. Polarizing pivot. Was I accomplice or avenger? Twitter juries convicted me hourly. Esther's no saint, Harlan hypocrite. Lila's testimony gutted worse. Called as hostile witness. She minced to the stand in boho chic, flowy blouse. Remorseful tears. Esther's brilliant, she cooed, but volatile. Dad protected me from her. Ambitions. Kensington pounced. Her immunity deal. The hack she greenlit. But she flipped midstream. Sobbing. He manipulated us both. The wires? Coerced. Gallery murmured. Was it act or atonement? Dad's face twisted. Betrayal's mirror. Father slaying daughter, with a glare. The twist detonated in closing. Kensington's bombshell exhibit. Audio tape me. 2015. Post handover. Dad. If this blows, it's on you. Laughter in my voice.
Cocky.
Doctored? No, real. From his private recorder.
Iedere.
Thinking it bluff.
Not bomb.
Jury eyes hardened. My walk away rang hollow. Verdict deliberations stretched 3 days. City holding breath like a diver. Guilty on all counts: fraud, manslaughter, cover-up, cyber tampering. 25 years. No parole. Dad's outburst. Esther, you did this. Echoed as marshals dragged him. Satisfaction? Fleeting. Like fireworks ash. Outside. Rain lashed. Lila waited under awning. Umbrella extended. Cease. Don't. I brushed past. But she grabbed my sleeve. The tape? I planted it. Payback for blocking me. You. Rage surged. But exhaustion won. Why? Legacy's blood. Remember? But yours. Not his. She handed a USB. Full ledgers. Unredacted. Rebuild clean. I'm out. Art in Seattle.
Nog Harlins.
She vanished into the downpour. Flip final and freeing. I drove home through flooded streets, rivers raging like my pulse. The company? Thriving under my hand, ethical steel, worker equity. A TED Talk invite pending. But the ending? Debatable tragedy masked as triumph. At the loft, I uncorked a bottle of Dad's favorite scotch, toasting the empty skyline. To disappointments, I murmured. The hook I'd swallowed dissolved. I was free, but scarred, America's daughter, forged in betrayal's fire. No tidy bow. Readers argue if I won or just survived, if revenge healed or hollowed. In the boardroom's long shadow. That's the real legacy. Questions that linger like river mist, daring you to choose a side. Yet as snow dusted the bridges anew, a call came, Ruiz. Esther? Loose end. Lila's immunity. Revoked. She flipped again, testifying for a book deal. Laughter bubbled. Dark and true. Blood runs thick. But in this empire of echoes, it runs cold too. The end? Or just the next deal?